Hello and welcome to the DataPanes channel. Today I'm going to show you how to take the previous setup of Trino deployed in Helm, also together with our Metastore and our object storage with Min.io to query delta tables through Trino. We did this by deploying it into Kubernetes with Helm, and it was pretty straightforward and hopefully very helpful for some of you. Well, today I'm going to show you how to take this and essentially apply GitOps practices with a tool called ArgoCD. So ArgoCD is a continuous development tool that can essentially pick up other repositories in other places, take our essentially our deployments and manage them for us. All right, so the GitOps practices is great. Probably for a lot of people out there, and essentially what it means is that it's a way to automate your deployments seamlessly based on changes on your original repository. So, for example, imagine you're a data person, data engineer, some kind of engineer of some kind, and essentially you take some code and you push it to a GitHub repo. And traditionally, you maybe would have essentially some kind of CI/CD step here. You know, maybe it's GitHub Actions or Jenkins or whatever it might be, and you take this and you run some script, which would, maybe run, vanilla kubectl commands, and essentially deploy to Kubernetes. Okay, boom. And then if you have had a change, or you do some change, you push your changes to your Git, the CI/CD picks it up and it redeploys it. Well, the problem with that is, okay, what do you do with things that are already deployed and already running in the cluster, right? There easily becomes a conflict between what you want to push versus what is there. So this script then becomes more complicated. At first you tear stuff down, then you deploy it back, and you go back and forth. Well, essentially with ArgoCD, it's quite neat. So what happens is you're a developer, you push your code to the GitHub repo, in this case, like the Trino stuff we were doing with Helm. So in here, I have the values YAML file for my Helm deployment. And then I configure ArgoCD to essentially just pull changes from this GitHub repo on a frequent basis and just deploy it automatically. So if I do a change here, automatically picks it up, redeploys it. Great. So let's jump straight into the demo. All right, so now I'm going to do this from scratch. In the comments, I will give you the GitHub repo and the Medium article where I'm running this. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy ArgoCD. So let's make sure that that works. And yeah, so in my GitHub repo, I've set up everything. It will do everything for you. It's super straightforward. You don't have to worry about anything. Okay, so here we're running this. Okay, cool. We're gonna grab the password. For this. Yes, okay, there we go. So this is essentially a temporary password for the UI, and then essentially we're gonna port forward. Okay, it's already in use, so let's use 8081 for the case of this. Okay, so here we now have the ArgoCD up running. As you can see, there is nothing running here yet. So let's start deploying some. Let's do the Metastore first. Okay, so right now, first what I do is I create a secret. So once ArgoCD is up and running, we also need to make sure that ArgoCD can access the GitHub repo, which in my case is the clean 90 database Trino Kubernetes.git. So you can also use this one, but you do have to set up your own SSH key. So I'm obviously not going to share it here, but the command is in the README how to run it. All right, and then the second thing we're going to do now, we're actually going to deploy the Metastore. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. So here I'm just going to throw in the command. Okay, so we can see here now that something is happening. Okay, and the important thing here, in my previous GitHub repo for the first iteration, I have the command how to build the Docker image that the Metastore expects. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, so here we can see that it got deployed, and we can go in and we can inspect it, and we can see here that all of the pieces that we had in for the Metastore is up and running. So we have the actual some of the services, both for the MinIO and the Postgres, which the Apache Hive Metastore uses internally, and we can see all of these things up and running. Okay, great. We can see the logs. So, for example, here on the MinIO, we can see that this is up and running. Good stuff. We can go and double check the actual Hive Metastore. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we can see that, this is up and running. It has created all of the stuff. And the beautiful thing here is that this is running within its own namespace. And that's what we can see here. It's running within Metastore, but it's being deployed from the ArgoCD namespace. So this is great. Okay, now let's jump to the Trino. Okay, and here I go back and I essentially run the same command that I have in the GitHub repo, but now for the Trino stuff. So the cool thing here now, right, is that as I'm deploying this, it's going to that other GitHub repo. The difference here from the Metastore one is that in the Metastore repo, or the part of that is vanilla Kubernetes. So it has one type of setup. Now here, actually, we're going to our own repo where we only have the values file for the Trino, and we're able to deploy a Helm deployment through ArgoCD. So ArgoCD will go to the official Helm place essentially and pull like the correct version. And you can see this in the GitHub repo for this workshop. And it will utilize that at the core, and then it will go and pick the values file from the repo and then deploy that. Okay, and now we can see that the Trino deployment is being deployed and it's up and running, and we have two workers and a coordinator, and everything's up and running and it looks great. And we can have a look at the actual coordinator. All looks fine. And here, for example, we can see that the Delta Lake catalog has been set up. Or actually, yeah, so here you can see here, actually, this is speeding up as we're speaking. So here it's registering the Delta Lake connector, just as we saw in the first workshop. And with this, we will be able to essentially, you will be able to do what you did previously, but now this is just managed automatically. So if I push a change, it will manage the deployment for me. Obviously, there are some caveats to this and things you need to think about, but this is kind of the core setup. And I might, in a second video or a third video, go more into the kind of blue-green deployment phases around this. All right, thank you.